Hi guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. So I'm back now with a different course, which is Pen Testing Plus, right? I remember the time when I wanted to take the Pen Test Plus. I went to YouTube looking for a video that has to do with pen testing, especially CompTIA PenTest Plus. I couldn't find any video, but I could find videos for is it ethical hacking under EC Council, but in CompTIA, I couldn't find anything. So hence I was like, okay, let me just create a video for CompTIA PenTest Plus. So because I've passed the CompTIA PenTest Plus, I've done the CSP, I've done the CISA Plus, I have the Security Plus, of which those are the certifications that fall under the cyber part under CompTIA. So I've done those. So that's why I said, okay, let me just create a video for other people so that they can, when they're looking to take the Pen Test Plus, they can find the videos, and then hopefully they will be very informative for you, and they will prepare you to take the Pen Test Plus exam. All right, without any further ado, let me start, right? So the first module or the first topic is about planning and scoping a penetration test, right? So you have been hired by a company to conduct a pen test on their infrastructure, on their systems. So you're gonna start with the planning phase, right? That's phase number one. Or on this part, we're looking at that, the planning part and the scoping part. So we're gonna break it down as to what does that mean, right? So first, planning and scoping penetration test, introduction to penetration testing concepts, right? So we're gonna go through the concepts of pen testing, try to break them down. So, and then plan a pen test engagement. You got to plan for that, scope and negotiate a pen test engagement, prepare for a pen test. Okay, so let's start with the penetration testing, right? Like we have terms that you're going to hear a lot when you are doing or part of a pen testing team, or you are taking your CompTIA Pen Test Plus. So we have like the vulnerability assessment, right? So these are two different terms: vulnerability assessment and penetration testing. These are two different things, right? So these are two different processes. So there are two different practices. So the vulnerability assessment, this is the practice of evaluating a computer network or application to identify potential weaknesses, right? That's what basically you're looking for. You are just like doing that phase. You are going through that phase. You're looking for weaknesses, and then identify any potential weaknesses, and identify any loophole within this system that you're looking at. Might be a software, might be a hardware, but you're just evaluating either a computer network or an application to identify potential weaknesses. That's where it ends, right? That's what you're gonna be doing. So I've seen most people, they use the vulnerability assessment and penetration testing terms interchangeable, but they are both not the same, right? They mean two different things. So evaluation or vulnerability assessment is all about evaluating a computer system, a network, or an application to identify potential weakness. And then when it comes to penetration testing, pen testing, this is the practice of evaluating a computer network or application to identify. So when it comes to pen testing, right, we start with the process of vulnerability assessment because we need to find a loophole, we need to find vulnerability within a system, and then we take actions after that, right? This is the part where penetration testing comes in. So penetration testing, it includes a vulnerability assessment whereby you are looking for vulnerabilities within the system. You might be using different tools. You might be using Nmap. You might be using. There are many different tools that we're going to look at. To the tools that we can use to evaluate a computer or to look for vulnerabilities within a system, right? So penetration testing, as I said, that it includes a vulnerability assessment, right? That's the first part. You got to look for vulnerabilities within the system. As you can see, a vulnerability assessment on my picture here, you can see we are just evaluating a computer network or an application to identify potential weaknesses. And then here on this part on pen testing, after evaluating, after we have identified weaknesses on the system, then exploiting them to gain unauthorized access to key systems and data, and culminating in the production of evidence and a report, right? So, since we have been hired by an organization, so there's a difference between the we have like the white head hacker, the black head hacker. So this type of pen testing that we're doing is whereby we are authorized by the client. that to conduct these pen tests on their system. So we have a signed document that proves that we are allowed to conduct a test. So the types of tests that we're doing is different from like a black hat or just like a malicious hacker hacking your organizational systems. This one that we're doing here under CompTIA, we are a white hacker, like we're more like a what do you call the red team, right? We have a concept of the red team, the blue team with like the purple. Like other one is defending, the other one is attacking. So now, if you're doing pen test plus, you are on the red team. That means you are attacking, right? And then Decisive plus is more of like analyzing the like looking, reading at the feeds that you received from different system, and then trying to find out to see it. Okay, are you being attacked or stuff like that? So for me, CISA, I feel like it's more on the blue team side, right? And then the Pentest Plus is more of like a red team, right? So on this part, on the pen testing part, we have been given authorization by the client, right? We have a document that they usually call it the out of jail free card, so that when you get caught conducting the pen test, you can show them or produce that document that you have that have been signed by the client, and then you can show the police officers or whoever caught you doing whatever you're doing, the pen testing that you're doing. You can show them that document that proves, okay, you have received authorization from the client to conduct the test, right? Okay, so that was slide number one. So you can see now, most people, as I said, that they use these two terms interchangeably, vulnerability assessment and pen testing, but they mean the two different things. So we on penetration testing, we take it a step further, whereby now we exploit the vulnerability that we found on a system. That's what's happening down here. So you can see the system is being exploited. But on vulnerability assessment, we're just assessing the system. We're just looking at the system and then try to find out if there is any vulnerabilities within the system, right? Okay, slide number 2. Benefits of pen testing, right? Like, what are the benefits of pen testing? Why are the organization hiring us to conduct pen test on their software, to conduct pen test on their infrastructure, or their computers, or whatever the call might be for? So benefits of pen testing. Number one, testing cyber defense capabilities, right? Testing cyber defense capabilities. So we just like some organization will call you to come and conduct a test on their organization or their systems, just to find out are they ready? Do they have adequate tools in place to mitigate or to stop any attack? So they're just testing their what to call their cyber posture or their security posture within their organization. So testing cyber defense capabilities, they're just testing, are they ready for any attacks? Like, are they going to be able to respond to attacks? Do they have like the good tools to pick up, to read, to pick up an attack that is ongoing within their system? So they're just testing their systems for that. And then the other part is revealing vulnerabilities. So some organization, they want to find, okay, which part of their systems is vulnerable, and then what that system is vulnerable to what, and stuff like that, right? Like, so they're looking for things like that. So revealing vulnerabilities. As an organization, we just want to know, we just want to find out what are the vulnerabilities that we have within maybe a web server. It might be the computers, or maybe they ask you to conduct social engineering, all of those things. They want to find out which part of their system is vulnerable, right? Okay, and then benefits of pen testing, again, finding and plugging security holes before they can be exploited. So it is very important for us to be the first ones to find maybe any vulnerability within our system, and then because we know that once we find that, we're going to be able to mitigate, we're going to be able to correct that, right? Unlike when it's found by a hacker, a malicious hacker, then what they will do is they will just like maybe extract our information or end up like selling our company information and stuff like that. So it's best for us to conduct a pen test so that we become the first ones to identify the vulnerability within our system, and then we can find or put measures in place to mitigate that. Okay, and then the other part is supporting risk management, and then also enhancing quality assurance, ensuring business continuity. Like ensuring business continuity, like there are certain systems that when they are down, like you find that the entire system or the entire organization is down. So what we need to do is we have to make sure that we ensure the business continuity. So we have like measures in place that when an attack happens to a certain part of your systems, you know, okay, you have a backup somewhere that so the attack mustn't affect the business, the running of the business, the business day to day, right? The day to day running of the business, right? It mustn't affect that. And then protecting clients, partners, and others. Again, like when it comes to this benefit, pen testing also can be protecting clients. We need to protect our clients. We have clients' information. We have what they personally identifiable information, which is the PII. Some they have the personal health information, PHI. So all of that information it needs to be protected, right? So if we look at it, like if an organization get hacked or get attack, the malicious user, the malicious hacker gains access to our organization, and then they end up gaining access to a file that has our client information. That part on its own, if the client now, or if the malicious hacker starts to try to expose us or try to expose that information, then you find that like now in future you lose you lose clients because of like the what you call the brand reputation damage and stuff like that. So we have to make sure that we protect our client information, right? And then our partners' information, and then there's a lot, right? So pen testing comes in with a lot of benefits. Again, also with pen testing, we are avoiding lawsuits, stuff like that. All right, ensuring regulatory compliances. So again, some of the systems, in order for them to be deployed to production, we need to be compliant with certain organizations. So pen testing, it helps us to be compliant with certain organizations. It might be the government, it might be the maybe an organization in our industry that is in charge of regulating certain systems. So once we meet the requirements from that organization, then we become compliant, right? So sometimes we do conduct pen testing just because we want to be compliant with a certain organization or we want to be compliant within the government because maybe the government is regulating the use of a certain product that we have manufactured or a certain software or maybe it's credit card information, things like that. And then also pen testing helps us maintain trust within our clients and our customers and our partners, all of those, right? So if our clients, our partners know that we have what you call like the good or the best measures in place to mitigate or to protect their their property, to protect their resources, to protect their infrastructure, then there is trust between us and then the client, right? Let's say maybe you're a cloud provider. So if you're a cloud provider and then so your client, if you don't have good measures in place to protect against cyber attacks, so no client will want to do business with you. So by us conducting the pen test regularly, it means that it shows our clients that we take cyber attack very serious on our side. All right, and then identifying return on investment. So this is the part whereby we find that okay, we have bought maybe a firewall from a certain organization. It might be a FortiGate firewall, might be an iShield firewall, might be a Cisco firewall. So identifying return on investment. So the marketing department or let's say maybe the finance department, they want to know that all of this equipment that they have bought, like will it return? Like is there an investment or is just wasting their money? So we also need to find out okay like what's the use of a certain device that they bought, and then you have to maybe look at the value of a firewall and then convert that into a monetary value. For example, let's say if you have bought maybe a firewall from FortiGate and then you're explaining to the finance department that if we get attacked, this is how much money we're going to lose as an organization, but because we have bought a FortiGate firewall will protect us from being attacked by these organizations or being attacked by certain what you call threat, certain types of attacks. So Now, that on its own, you can convert it into a monetary value and then be able to explain to the finance department, and then they will understand, okay, why did they invest in that? Right? So they will need to note, okay, why did they buy a firewall? Why did they buy certain equipment? Maybe it's a SIEM, security environment management tool, whatever tool that it is, they will want to know, okay, how is it going to help them, right? Okay, let's move to next slide. Pen testing standards and frameworks, right? So there are so many frameworks that are in place that one can follow in terms of like when they are conducting a pen test, right? So we have the check framework developed by UK government, and then intended to ensure that government agencies and public entities can contract with government approved pen testers. OAPS testing framework. This one mainly is for the OAPS mainly is developed by a multinational OAPS is developed by a multinational organization that collects and shares security practices with software developers. So it's mainly for, I can say it's mainly for websites, right? You can use it like to test your website. There is OAPS tool that you can use to test your website. Right? This framework provides pen testing and other testing techniques for each part of the software development lifecycle. So these are the frameworks that you can follow or use when you are conducting a pen test. And then we have like the open source security testing methodology manual, right? Open source security testing methodology manual, pronounced OSM, security testing analysis for better operational security, right? And then we have the PTS, penetration testing execution standard, developed by security service practitioners. So what it does, provides business professionals and security services providers with the basic lexicon and guidelines for performing pen test. So it's also one of those frameworks that provides us with the guidelines on how to perform a pen test. And then we have the NIST, developed by the US National Institute of Standards and Technology. And this is mainly like more of like the technical guide to information security testing and assessment. So it provides practical recommendation for designing, implementing, and maintaining pen test processes and procedures. So that's what this one does, right? The NIST part. So these are frameworks that you can follow. So as they always say that instead of you inventing your own wheel, like why can't you just use something that's already existing? So you can use any of these frameworks and then you can conduct a test depending on your approach or depending on the systems that you are testing. And then also again, depending on the client's requirement. All right. And then moving along to the next slide, let me do this. Okay, moving along to my next slide. Okay, reconnaissance part. So here is the process commonly used for pen testing, right? This one is for CompTIA PenTest Plus, right? And then you find that when you're doing ethical hacking from is under EC Council, you have these different steps, right? So you have there are different what you call the standards and frameworks. So there are several processes that can be used for pen testing. So for pen test plus, these are the steps that you need to follow. Cyber attack, there is this reconnaissance. Okay, well, let's focus on the pen test, right? On the pen test plus, this is the part where you start with the planning phase. We have different phases, right? So the planning phase, most recognized pen test processes include a planning phase, right? So if your pen test is recognized, so that means you have an arrangement with the client. You have sat down and say, okay, this is the type of test that we need to do. The client have sat down with you and then gave you the requirements. So we start with the planning phase. So depending on the authority that promulgates the process, this phase might also include identifying the scope of engagement. So those are the things that the scope of engagement, this is the part whereby the client is telling you which systems to attack, what time am I going to attack them, and then which other system are you not supposed to attack. And then also this part on the planning phase, we're looking at documenting logistical details. For example, how we're going to get there, who's going to do this and that. So on the planning phase, that's what happens. And then also other preliminary activities that need to occur before the commencement of the pen test. So maybe sometimes you need like other team members to be part of that. You need a developer, maybe you need all the stakeholders that are involved, they need to be contacted. All the resources that are needed, they need to be put in place on the planning phase. So on the planning phase, we're saying you might also include identifying the scope of the engagement. So the client has given you the requirements. You want to find out how big the scope is, which system are you going to test, and then what times are you going to test the systems, and then which systems you're not supposed to test. So that's the planning phase. We're moving along to the reconnaissance phase, right? The reconnaissance phase, this is the part whereby you are gathering information. You are gathering information, maybe like let's say from LinkedIn, from this social media sites, right? So you are gathering what we call open source intelligence, whereby it's information that is publicly available, right? So in reconnaissance phase, the tester gathers information about the target organization and systems prior to start of the pen test. You are collecting much information about the client. Some of the information that you've collected, you might not use it, but on this phase, you are collecting all of the information, and then you will sit down and filter out which information will be useful for you, and then use that. But reconnaissance phase, we're gathering as much information as we can. So this can include both passive information gathering, and then such as collecting publicly available information about the organization. So where can you go when you want to know about an organization? Where can you go when you want to know about the users or the employees of a certain organization that you're conducting a pen test on? So maybe you can go to sites that advertise jobs, like for example LinkedIn. There are a lot of those sites, right, where you can find more information, and then go also to the organizational website. You can find maybe information about maybe who is the administrator of that website. You can find information like who's maybe the CEO of that organization. Maybe some they put like the positions of different employees within the website, so you know, okay, so and so is in charge of this department, or so and so, this is their ranking within this organization. So those are the information that you're collecting on the reconnaissance phase. All right. So organization and so you're collecting publicly available information about the organization. So which is like more of like passive information gathering, right? And then deliberate acts such as scanning pods to detect possible vulnerabilities, and then also you can use tools like maybe Nmap to scan pods. For example, you're looking for open pods within the systems, or so this is reconnaissance. Reconnaissance phase, we're gathering information. We're just collecting as much information as we can, which is open source intelligence, the information that is publicly available. And then moving along to the scanning part. So the scanning phase is generally a bit more in-depth than the reconnaissance phase, because on the reconnaissance phase, what you're doing is you're just gathering information from different sources. So you are gathering information that is publicly available. But on the scanning phase, now we take it a bit step higher, and then this is where vulnerability assessment begins. We're looking for vulnerability. It's either from an operating system or from a hardware system or whatever. We're looking for vulnerabilities. We're looking for a loophole, right? So we can do static and dynamic scanning tool. We can tools evaluate how to target response to intrusion. So we can do static and dynamic scanning. So static is just maybe sometimes might be you just looking at the code when it's not running, right? And then you wanna see if there's any mistakes there within the code. That's something that you can use to attack that system. Dynamic, maybe we can use tools to collect information or to send some information to the system or to the software, and then see how the system behaves. For example, we can use Nmap to scan for open ports. So from reconnaissance to scanning, we're taking things a bit step, right? So planning, set down, we're planning, reconnaissance, scanning. Now on the scanning phase, as I said, that it's a bit more in-depth than the reconnaissance phase. So on the scanning phase is where vulnerability assessment begins. Static and dynamic scanning tools, now we are using those tools, right? And then gaining access now. This phase is when the actual exploit begins, right? So by applying the information gained by reconnaissance and scanning, so to begin to attack target systems. So gaining access, we collected information on reconnaissance, and then we said on reconnaissance part, you might find that there's information that you might not use, right? So you filter you look at the information that is going to be more useful to you, and then you put it aside, and then you just so you're filtering your information, looking at what might be useful to you. And then on the scanning phase, we're doing static and dynamic scanning using different tools there, and then we have collected information. We know to map which port is open on that on the system. Maybe there is port 5 is open, HTTP is open, or whatever port is open. Maybe you find that port 22 or port 21 is open. Then what can we do with that information? So on gaining access, we're using the information that we collected from scanning phase and reconnaissance phase now to gain access on this system. Right. And then maintaining access now. In this phase, the pen tester install mechanism allowing them to continue to access the system. So you want to install a software or install a code that will allow you to maintain access to the system. So once you've gained access to a system, you need a tool or something that will allow you to have this constant access to the system. Right? Maybe you're monitoring that system, maybe you're collecting information from that system. You want to maintain that access to the system. And then on this phase again, this phase is also where pen testers reach deeper into the network by accessing other network systems. So we have what we call the lateral movement. Lateral movement is whereby you have gained access to the organizational infrastructure, but now you want to move from one device to another device, or maybe one subnet to another subnet. So you are doing what we call lateral movement. You have gained access, so you have maintained access to the system, but you want to move from one system to another. So it can all happen in this part on the maintaining access. Right? So you want to penetrate to all the devices within this organization. And again, with doing that, you must be stealthy, right? Whatever you do, it mustn't upset the firewalls. It mustn't upset the IPS, the intrusion prevention system. It mustn't upset the intrusion detection systems, right? So they mustn't pick up your activity. So whatever you do, it must be stealthy, right? So you gotta be quiet. You gotta do it like is it a cheetah, or when it's attacking its prey. So you gotta do it quietly. All right, covering tracks. Covering tracks, you have done all of your stuff. So this phase concentrates on obliterating evidence that proves an exploit occurred. So you want to cover your tracks, right? Your footsteps, right? You've been walking to your neighbor's house to steal something, of which, okay, I'm not condoning that, but I'm just saying now you need to delete or to wipe out your footprint, right? That prove that you walked to your neighbor's house. So now digital, when we are doing this thing or on cloud or whatever online, right? We leave what we call the digital footprint. So what you need to do is you got to wipe out that, because in the end, this organization might do forensics, right? So you also need to do your own forensics. After you're done, you got to cover your tracks, do your own forensics, right? So it generally consists of two phases, right? We avoiding real-time incident response. We gotta avoid that, and then efforts, and then also avoiding post-exploit forensic liability, right? So real-time incident response efforts is whereby I don't want anyone to pick up that I'm on their system right now. And then on the other parties, once I'm done with everything that I was doing, I don't want anyone to be able to pick up that maybe after 10 months or 6 months that I was on their system. So I gotta cover all those tracks. Right. Okay, analysis now. We're moving to analysis part. So in this phase, the pen tester gathers all the information collected, identifies root causes for any vulnerabilities detected, and develops recommendation for mitigation. So the mitigation part is whereby we trying by all means, it's either to reduce the impact of the risk, or to reduce the likelihood of the impact of the risk happening. Right? So we're reducing the chances of the risk happening. We're going to get to that part of how do we go about that. So analysis, we're saying that the pen tester gathers all the information collected, identifies root causes for any vulnerabilities detected, and develops recommendation for mitigation. So remember, pen testing is all about us assisting our clients, identifying the vulnerabilities within their system, and then after we've identified those vulnerabilities within their system, we're going to recommend the mitigation processes or measures that they can take in terms of to mitigate this attack. So of course it's a pen test, they are paying us to conduct a test with their system, and they will need the recommendation from us to say, okay, in order for you to mitigate this vulnerability, you need to do 1, 2, 3. So this is the part where you do that as a pen tester, right? If you are a malicious attacker on this phase doesn't exist. As you can see this side on the cyber attack phases, there is no analysis because the attacker just attacks you. That once they are done, they are gone. There is no recommendations. They are just coming you with maybe asking you for what's that part whereby the okay, I forgot the term, but yeah, so it's different from the pen tester. Definitely, we are going to tell you what needs to be done. We recommend the mitigation steps or techniques that you can use to mitigate that. All right, reporting part is we've been employed by this guy, we've been hired by this company organization to conduct a pen test. We got to report back to them. So the reporting phase is where the information from testing and analysis are officially communicated to the stakeholders, right? All that information, whatever we've done, we need to report to the stakeholders. And although reporting requirements can vary due to customer needs or statutory regulations, most pen test report list the pen test report will list these, right? The vulnerabilities detected. You got to report on the vulnerabilities that you have detected, and then vulnerabilities exploited. What did you exploit, right? You got to report on that. Sensitive data accessed. You got to tell them, okay, which sensitive data did you gain access to? And then how long the pen tester had access? How long did we have access to the systems for? And then suggestions and techniques to counteract the vulnerabilities, right? You want to counteract the vulnerabilities, right? Like you want to make sure that, okay, before a malicious hacker finds out this information, I need to first mitigate those, right? So that's what happened within these stages. Okay, so planning can include project scope, logistics, and other preliminary activities, reconnaissance, passive and active information gathering, right? Scanning, so deeper than reconnaissance. So this is what I was explaining now. Gaining access, begin exploit based on information from earlier stages. All right, so tools commonly used in pen testing. Let's look at the tools that we are going to use to conduct a pen test, right? Let's see if we're starting with the Nmap. So the Nmap is an open source network scanner used for network discovery and auditing. So network discovery, Nmap is a good tool that is used by most people to find vulnerabilities within their systems. For example, if you want to find out which ports are open within a system, or might be you want to find out which IP addresses are used within this organization, which IP addresses are active, are assigned to devices, I can use Nmap. So it can discover host, it can scan ports, it can Nmap can enumerate services, it can fingerprint operating system. You can use Nmap to find out which operating system is the host using, right? And then also run script-based vulnerabilities. You can also run scripts using the Nmap, right? And then we also have the Nikto. This also is an open source web server scanner that searches for potentially harmful files. So if you're looking to scan any web server, if you're looking for any potential harmful files, you go for Nikto. So it also checks for outdated web server softwares and then also looks for problems that okay with some web server software versions. So it already fed. They already fed it with information. They know this is more of like an automated system. It knows what it's looking for, so it can be able to pick up all of those. Like it can pick up problems that occur with some web server software versions, right? And then the good part of it, it comes in. It's included with Kali Linux. So if you've downloaded Kali, then just know that you got Nikto in them. And also Nmap, I think, comes in also or within the Kali tool. All right, and then the OpenVAS, which is the Open Vulnerability Assessment System. So it's also an open source software framework for vulnerability scanning and management. If you're looking to scan devices for any vulnerabilities, you can also use OpenVAS. And then we have this SQL map, an open source database scanner that searches for and exploits SQL injection flows. So if you want to scan or evaluate your database, you can use SQL map, which will all search for, exploit, search, and then also exploit your SQL injection flows within the database. So it is included in Kali Linux, this one. And then we have the Nessus part, right? A proprietary vulnerability scanner developed by Tenable 10 Network Security. It was like initially an open source, right? It was an open source. So it scans for vulnerabilities And then misconfigurations. We see this a lot with maybe different devices whereby the attacker, the malicious hacker gains access to the system just because of the misconfigurations. They didn't configure the system correctly, and then that's how now the system got hacked. So now here in South Africa we have this one organization that deals with the credit cards and other stuff that got hacked by a group of hackers that are from Brazil. So the only reason or the only way they managed to hack this, because they shared their proof of concept, it was because it was through the brute force attack whereby they were just like sending in different types of passwords until they found out that okay, one of the users was using the password which is password. So you see, like, or sometimes some of the routers, you find that a router, someone didn't change the password of the router. We know that if it's a Cisco router, if it's a what you call these other home routers, you know, okay, what's the default password for them, right? Some is admin username is admin, password found that is admin. So there were some people that don't change that, right? So that's how it makes it easy for some attackers to be able to attack those type of systems. All right. And then also, okay, this is Nessus, right? Let's move to, so scanning tools, you can use all of these scanning tools, right? And then credential testing tools. If you want to use any credential testing tools, we have the Hashcat, right? The Hashcat. So it's a free password recovery tool that is included in Kali Linux and is also available in Linux and then also on the Mac OS X and then also in Windows. It includes a very widely range of hashing algorithms, password cracking methods. Hashcat purports itself to be the fastest recovery tool available. So if you want to recover any password, so you can use Hashcat. It's a free password recovery tool. You can use it, right? So it's available on Kali and also available for Linux, OS, and then Windows also. The next one is Medusa. So a Medusa is a command line based free password cracking tool that is often used in brute force password attacks on remote authentication servers. Like if you want to attack any server remotely, you can use Medusa. So when it comes to CompTIA PenTest Plus, the type of questions that they'll be asking you, you find that they ask you, okay, like if you want to attack a server, which tool, which credential testing tool are you going to use? So they'll put all of these. They'll put all of these: the Hashcat, the Medusa, the TSC Hydra, and then John the Ripper. So they'll put all of these, right, and ask you to, okay, if you want to do like what you call when you want to conduct a test on a server, a remote authentication servers, right? So which tool are you going to use? So because some of them is offline tools, like the John the Ripper, I think is an offline tool that you can maybe decrypt password using the John Ripper offline. So you need to know, okay, which one is going to be the online, which one is offline tool. So when completing or when preparing for CompTIA PenTest Plus. Okay, there's a lot of tools. There are so many tools. Let me just look at the Ken and Abel, right? So some of the tools you won't see them on the CompTIA exams. Like they look at the, I think memcards. You can see John the Ripper is very popular. So John the Ripper is a free password recovery tool available for Linux. And then I've used the John the Ripper on Linux. There's different versions. Also can be found on version 11 on Unix. And then also it's included in Kali Linux, so you can test or use John the Ripper there on Kali Linux. And then also we have the Canon Abel, which is a free password recovery tool available for Windows that is sometimes classified as malware by some antivirus. And then Mimkits, okay, there is a lot of those there. Okay, tool tab, debugging tools. So if you want to debug anything, the debugging tools, so debugging part is whereby maybe you want to conduct a reverse engineering, right? You want to do reverse engineering whereby you want to see how the system or the software or the system, how the system works, right? So you can use the Audit DPG, which is a reverse engineering tool included with Kali Linux that analyzes the binary code found in 32-bit Windows applications. So if you want to do a reverse engineering tool, how you want to find out how a system works, right? How a system works. So all of that information, reverse engineering, you can use it. You can use the audit debug. So So this reverse engineering is just like a technique used to analyze software, in order to identify and understand the parts it is composed of. So you just want to understand how this particular system works, so you can use all the DBG. Okay. All right. Let me see. Um, let me see.